Welcome to DEFCON 3. I'm KT McFarland. As the world is focused on the fighting in the Middle East, there's fighting that's broken out in another part of the world, and that's between India and Pakistan in South Asia. They're fighting in Kashmir. It's a time and a place where they've been fighting since the beginning of the Indian and Pakistani states. So here to talk to us about the implications and what this could mean to the United States and to the world is Jeff Smith. He's from the American Foreign Policy Council. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us. India and Pakistan fighting over Kashmir. What's the status?
Yeah, well, in some ways it's nothing new. Since about 2003, the border in Kashmir has been relatively calm. There's been no major exchanges of fire or major armed conflicts, but there is, year after year, these tit-for-tat artillery fire and mortar exchanges where you have a few dozen people killed, and that's precisely what's happening now. And unfortunately, it's been ongoing for about a week and seems to be escalating with no clear resolution in sight.
Now, these are two nuclear weapon states. Is there any way this escalation continues to escalate more and more and more and potentially gets Pakistan and India in a real fight between the two?
Well, as you say, because they are both nuclear-armed states and because they have a history of fighting 4 wars against one another, that's always a risk. But as I said, you know, this sort of tit-for-tat violence, beheadings at the border, cross-border artillery fire is not all that unusual. So they do have a long record of managing these kind of tensions. The key difference now is that you have Narendra Modi in power in India, and his government has really signaled that it's not going to be business as usual anymore, that provocations by Pakistan and cross-border fire and infiltration into Kashmir by militants will receive a robust response, and India will not back down or act passively as maybe some governments in the past had.
Well, if you look at Pakistan, it's a predominantly Muslim country. India is predominantly Hindu, although a large Muslim population. What is the opportunity for radical jihadists, Muslim extremists, to seize this as a cause and then continue the fighting and make it a religious war?
Well, there's no question that religious extremists inside Pakistan use these episodes to exploit anti-India sentiment, and perhaps they'll use this latest bout of fighting as, you know, further propaganda to try and send more jihadists into India. The military will certainly use it as further evidence that there is this omnipresent threat from India that will require ever greater funding and ever greater military resources to combat what is really a phantom menace. I mean, India has no desire to come, you know, marching into Kashmir or Islamabad, but the Pakistani military and these jihadists justify their existence by propping up this threat.
All right, Pakistan, if you look at Pakistan on the map, India is on its east, Afghanistan is on its west. Historically, the Indians have supported the Northern Alliance tribes in Afghanistan. What's the likelihood that there's a fight there between, that it spills out into Afghanistan as the United States is leaving the region?
I think the likelihood that ongoing violence in Afghanistan beyond the U.S. withdrawal is very high. And as you said, India has traditionally supported the Northern Alliance and many of the folks, frankly, that we are supportive of, while Pakistan has backed the Taliban. And, you know, the potential for a sort of proxy war there is very real. And in fact, Pakistan has been targeting Indian assets inside of Afghanistan for years now. I mean, our own intelligence officials know that Pakistan was behind the bombing of Indian embassy compounds in Kabul. And this is while the U.S. had over 100,000 troops in Afghanistan. There's certainly a significant chance that Pakistan will become even more brazen in its attacks on India and Indian allies inside Afghanistan after we depart.
Okay, well, that's it for DEFCON 3, and I want to point out, Jeff, that people have heard it here first. Jeff Smith, American Foreign Policy Council, we are predicting that the fighting in South Asia could well spill over into Afghanistan in the future. Thanks for joining us.